Welcome to episode 18. What a week in music we've had. This week we listened to an album I'm certain that you will never have on your jazz albums to own list. However, it really shook the world. At first glance, we saw the name Stan Kenton, thought we were in for a real exciting time. Well, we weren't wrong. Just not the surprise and exciting time we expected to find. Now, a year later, and a lot more love and appreciation for jazz music, we might get this album or understand it. Or it might still be BS. Tune in to find out what we thought. Here we are. 3, 2.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unconnoisseur. I am half of the co-host for the show. My name's Matt.
And I'm Drew.
We just want to welcome you and let you know that we appreciate you being on our journey with us. In case this is your first episode, we are on a jazz journey together using JazzWise magazine as our guide. The 2022 JazzWise magazine, the top 100 albums that shook the world. And this episode is number 18. This is album 82. Before we get started with our episode, though, Drew, tell me, what was your week in music like?
Man, it was kind of all over the place this week. With the recording that the album that we're listening to for Tuesday morning and this album, my ears were in all kinds of jazz. Just as far as the main week, it was just kind of all over the place. I enjoyed a lot of different music from Lee Morgan, Sidewinder, and figured out that was used in a Chrysler ad, which was pretty cool. I've had a pretty easy week, I'm not going to lie.
Good.
Nothing really spectacular going on. I am committed to June 10th through the 14th at Texas Jazz and Blues Camp this year. And today I got Lily signed up, and it'll be a great time. We've been talking with the other instructors. We've got some new instructors that are slated to be there, but we got a lot of stuff ramping up for the Texas Jazz and Blues Camp. That's been preparation. And then, of course, every Sunday night, Lily is involved in the jazz ensemble that I get to sit in. So I spend a lot of time during the week trying to practice when I can, learn solos and improvisation. So this week it's been a little bit more practice to get involved in that. And then I've taken the role of secretary, making sure that we have the notes. June 9th, the Sunday before the camp kicks off, Don Braden will be in town, and they're going to do a special faculty concert at Monk's Jazz. They've invited the Sunday night ensemble to come and open the second set. So our group will be sitting in at Monk's, opening with, we've got 6 songs slated, which is going to be super cool. So we're working through the arrangements for the intros and outs. We've got 3 vocal songs where there'll be riffs from the horns, and then 3 horn songs that we've worked on. So I'm pretty excited to see the kids do that, and we'll have, I don't know if I'll be photographing it, and it may be broadcast. If it is, I'll get you the link.
Oh, please,
So
yeah.
that we can have that and show that later. So for us, it's prep coming into the end of the school year. Lily will finish up, I think, 11 days now. So
And she'll be a sophomore.
she will be a sophomore. Absolutely. What about your weekend music, Matt?
Well, the artist that we're going to discuss today, he was in my ear as much as I could. And then our personal journey artist, you mentioned one of the same artists that I rabbit holed into this week with that Sidewinder. What an awesome album. But we'll get there. I don't want to give too much away. But then on Thursday last week, we had the opportunity to go to the Blue Gate Theater and see Jo Dee Messina. Now,
Yes.
Jody's a country star. From the 90s. She was a pretty big star. Worked with Tim McGraw and wrote some songs with Tim and she has a decent career. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
So we got to go hear some music that wasn't jazz, and I was, it's funny because not only am I an influence on my spouse, but she is also an influence on me. And Jo Dee happens to be one of her, she really likes Jody Messina. Really like that would be one of her go-to musics. And you don't have to twist my arm to go see Jody Messina. Let's put it that way. Just because I've heard the music and she enjoys it, and she sings this one song, "Bring on the Rain," and it gets me. It just gets me every time. It moves me like, and it makes me cry like a little baby. And sure enough, man, it did not disappoint Thursday night when we saw it live, and I was just sitting there. It brings back memories for me when the song first came out. I think it was right around 2000, 2001. I was stressed because I was in college, married. Delaney had just been born, and I had term papers to do or something. And there was a family gathering in Ohio, and we were driving. I was a little overwhelmed. The song came on. I started bawling my eyes out. And anyways, I get emotional with music. I really do. And I'm not ashamed to say it. And that's just one of those songs that hits me more than any other. It's a duet with Tim McGraw. Tim McGraw was not there at the concert, but I can hear the duet part in my head as she's singing. And man, her band is really good though. And it was just an awesome time. Blue Gate is about an hour and 15, hour and 20 for us to Shipshewana. And unfortunately, I don't want to say she cut the show short, but she only sang for about an hour and 15 minutes. So, it was still daylight when we walked out of the theater. Let's put it that way.
Oh, and that's right. Nobody opened.
So yeah, there was no opener. Yeah.
Hour and a half hour drive, hour of music, hour drive home.
Yeah.
Did you have a good meal? Some ice cream?
We had the buffet at the Blue Gate. So let's just put it this way. I had to take a few deep breaths and remind myself that I didn't have to stuff myself because it's easy to do there. The fried chicken and roast beef is just out of this world. So, but this week's artist, I had in my ear personally, and then I was playing a little bit for Kendra last night. We were outside planting flowers and, in and out of the garage. And I kind of had it playing from my phone, and she was sitting there. And I guess we better introduce the artist first, huh?
Well, finish that. We'll go back.
Well, and it was playing, and I kept, I kept asking her, so what do you think? What do you think? And she said, it kind of sounds like scary movie music score. Yeah. And
we will get to exactly why we think that. Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have interrupted you. We should just introduce the album and kick it off.
All right. Go ahead. I got
the album info right here, yeah.
All right. Do it.
This week's album, as you can tell by the title of all of this, is Stan Kenton Plays Robert Gradinger. The album is titled City of Glass, and it was on Capitol Records. Came out on LP and CD. It was recorded on the 5th of December, 1951, ? And I'm going to leave that question mark because all the reading that we have done to get to the album. And this is an interesting kickoff. So we'll say it again. City of Glass, Stan Kenton plays Robert Gradinger. I'm not going to go through the list of all of the names that were on this. There's 28 some players on it. A couple of names stood out last week to us. Art Pepper, Maynard Ferguson. Out of 28, we kind of recognize too. But this is really episode 18, so week 18. We don't know what we don't know yet. It's been a year later, so we've listened to it again, and the opening says that it may be brilliance or it may be BS. Bullshit. And one of the trumpet players in an interview in the early 80s said, I think it's BS. So we begin the discussion on the City of Glass.
Well, I highlighted a few things in the magazine, in the article, and let me just take a minute because Can you imagine buying a ticket? And we knew what we were getting ourselves into buying a ticket for Jody Messina. We
Yep.
knew the music. We knew, her performance, this, that, and the other. But can you imagine buying a ticket to the Chicago Civic Opera House not knowing what to expect? And the night of April 20th, 1948, people
Four,
bought a ticket.
420, 1948. Sorry. So I'm wondering, were they prepared for this or were they not?
That's freaking awesome. But they didn't. Okay, just like me and you. Oh, Stan Kenton, this is going to be awesome. Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to go buy my ticket. I'm going to tell my friends, buy a ticket. And then you show up at Chicago Civic Opera House, and what you get is not what you expect.
Nope.
The music was written in a linear, non-melodic, polytonal style that was startling and strikingly original. So
it's like putting colorful adjectives out there.
I was trying to break down those words in my head. Okay, a linear, non-melodic. I got non-melodic. There's hardly any melody in the music. Polytonal. What do you know what polytonal is? Because I don't.
This single stream of tones, 12 tones, with 25 instruments together. Mostly a tone, their own tones. I read something this morning, Matt, that it said it was early avant-garde before avant-garde jazz was jazz.
So I think, all right. You and I are big Stan Kenton fans, and that's because, well, partly because of this week we had a lot of other Stan Kenton in our ears on our rabbit hole, right?
Yep.
And then partly even before the journey, I think, maybe not before the journey started, but soon after it started, I told you about Kenton 76, and we got all excited about that album and everything else. And so we're just coming off of a huge week, Wynton Marsalis week. Both of us had so much jazz in our ears last week with Wynton Marsalis, and then you see Stan Kenton, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be awesome.
It was not Kenton 76.
It was not.
And I want to read this. I was incorrect earlier. Polyphonic density is what one of the critics said, so I wrote down polyphonic. Many sounds simultaneously.
Okay.
Many sounds.
Sounds. All right.
Polyphonic. And he used polystylic sound world, polystylistic sound world, or multiple styles at one time.
I can, you can hear it.
In your slideshow coming up, do you have any of the pictures of his compositions?
I do.
They look like children's coloring books.
Yeah, you know what? Well, keep talking, and I'll just throw it up real quick.
I'll read what I have as you bring that up. People use that word that it was a tone poem. The tone poem, very conceptual, complex. But this one said Russell Garcia was one of his mentors, screen, stage, and broadcast composition. So polystylic sound world, polyphonic density, and somebody used the word bracing atonality or lacking a tone center.
In my mind, I can picture like almost a movie going on in my mind, and it's the theme music to the movie. Now, that wasn't Gradinger. He wasn't. I think the term is Foley, but Foley is the theme music and the sounds that go along with the movies. And that's not Gradinger. I mean, that's not what he originally was writing for, but in my mind, that's what I hear and that's what I see.
Up on screen here is images of his compositions as he's writing out the music. This is what he wrote it out to look like. The color coding. This is not what you expect from someone writing a song. When you come out with a concept, I almost expect some notes on a paper, but this is blocks on, it's graph paper. and he's written some things, and he's got streams of things going on. So yeah, take a look at these.
Keep going.
Yeah, what you got?
So yeah, the slideshow. And thanks again for letting me do it. It's a lot of fun putting it together. I just put it was interesting to me because again, I'm a fan of the artwork of the albums. You know, that's by now our listeners should know that I'm just a fan. And there was two different artworks that I found for this album. The City of Glass, the one on top, is the one that shows up on iTunes. I'm not sure which one shows up on Google Music, but I
Top
think
one.
it's the same one. Yeah.
Yep.
But then the artwork on the below picture, um, it, it definitely would give a different meaning to the album if that was the artwork.
Which one do you like best?
I like the one on the bottom the best. Believe it or
I
not.
do too. I do too.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who are listening on the podcast, the City of Glass, the original artwork, it looks like a modern day city. The photo is kind of blurry,
Like motion blur
motion.
zooming into the
Yes,
skyscrapers.
yeah, not a blurry photo, but motion blur. And then the other picture that we're talking about, the buildings are drawn in glass, and there's a really cool background. So yeah, I like the bottom one better. A couple of pictures that I found.
It really explains his appearance. What the
It
musicians
does.
say.
Yeah, I was thinking more vampire than even this by their description. So when I saw these pictures, I'm like, well, he's not really a vampire, but the chalky white skin they talk about even because he
Yeah.
never, probably didn't go out much. But yeah, black and white photos of Gradinger. Yeah, he is what he is. Just a quote by Robert: "I have more to say than I can express with just one instrument."
And he used a lot to express.
He sure did. Oh man. Uh, yeah, he had a lot to say, that's for sure. Because some of the research we've done with some of the other artists, it's why listen to one jazz song when you can listen to 4 jazz songs at one time? Kind of quote, That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Oh man.
Of what's going on with the music. Or another kind of, I was reading the Picasso, he painted it in all different directions. So no matter which direction you're standing in, you see something different. And again, great. I'm not comparing Gradinger to Pablo Picasso, but his music, depending on what ears you're listening to it with.
I wonder if we listened to the album backwards, would we get the same sound?
Information. He was born in 23 and died in 57. It was tough to find some influences about him, or who he was influenced by. But one of the articles I read, maybe it was even right on the wiki page, that Igor Stravinsky, Aaron Copland, and Arnold Schoenberg were some of his influence. Now, Aaron Copland, he's the It's What's for Dinner. Why can't I think of the name of the piece? Rodeo, right?
Yep.
It's Rodeo. And Igor Stravinsky, big classical guy. But the genre, we talked about the genre a little bit: avant-garde, third stream, and big band. And I'm having a hard time finding the big band genre in here, except for that. Yes, it is definitely a 28-piece band, so it is a big band. But when I think of big band, it's not what I think of. So third stream, we talked a little bit about third stream. It's a fusion of jazz and classical. It was a new genre that was made up. It was located about halfway between jazz and classical. So some of the other arrangements that I pulled up that Gradinger did: April in Paris. Now, I couldn't pull the tune out of my head. I know the name of the song, but I couldn't pull the tune out of my head. Everything Happens to Me, of course, that's on the album. House of Strings, and I Only Have Eyes for You. Now, he didn't write I Only Have Eyes for You. He probably arranged it in some way for a band or something that that he liked or whatever. So again, just some other arrangements. Website, nope, Robert did not have a website. Interesting to me today in jazz history, May the 29th, back in 1958, Kenny Washington, who was a drummer, was born on this day in 1958. Duke Ellington records Anatomy of a Murder in 1959.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, Ellington is going to he's going to become an integral part of my life here soon. Just I'm a huge Duke Ellington fan, and I'm becoming even a bigger
Yep.
Duke Ellington fan. So that was important to me. Anatomy of a Murder in '59. I'm all done with the slideshow. Thanks for letting me do
Thanks for
that.
sharing that week after week, man. I know it takes time to prepare that and get things ready, so I do appreciate that.
Absolutely. On the Wikipedia page for the album City of Glass, I like to look at the genre just to make sure that I'm in the right category. You know, the genre for on the wiki says avant-garde, and then third stream. And I had no idea what third stream even meant. So in on my rabbit hole, I was trotting down. So I pulled up the wiki for third stream. And third stream is a musical genre that's a fusion of jazz and classical. I'm still having a hard time finding the third stream with City of Glass. And you know, here's the funny thing. You and I texted this week, I think pretty shortly after we were done for
Oh
the
yeah.
first day. It's like I just remember some of the comments.
Oh yeah.
I'd
Uh,
rather eat glass.
Eating glass. This is not the city of glass. This is eating glass. The third stream concept, because I did get into this. You can't call it orchestra music because there is some of the jazz flavor to it, but you don't call it jazz. And Stan Kenton from 47 to 51 was in an innovative phase. He left behind his big band sound, this wall of sound that we love. Kenton 76, go listen to it and you'll know what we mean. So that sound wave coming at us. But this is into the 50s when bop is the mainstay of jazz music. And some of these players, Maynard Ferguson for one of them, Art Pepper, these guys are doing that. They're out doing the bebop and into the hard bop. So it's not quite jazz and it's not quite orchestra. So they've deemed it third stream. And
They
so
had to
that's,
pigeonhole it. They had to pigeonhole it
yeah,
somehow.
we
So
like to
they
label stuff. And it's
yeah.
just like last week we were talking about Winton being a purist. And the terminology that most critics put on him is straight jazz. Well, what's straight jazz? Is it purist, traditionalist? Is it encompassing bebop only or hard bop? Is that what it is? But we like to classify it so we can sell it. How do you sell that record? And
Well, that's this record right here. I was reading some more articles this week. They had a hard time selling this because the true Stan Kenton fans that were behind him and the big band sound and the swing and the dance bands, they heard that this album was no good, and so hardly anybody bought this album.
they were livid.
They were livid. They were angry for Stan. I liken it to firing David Lee Roth and hiring Sammy Hagar. Right?
Wow, you had to go there.
I went there because because sparked a debate for the next few decades. Which one's better? And so when I get that
Yeah,
question, I say, you know what? They're both good. I'm an Eddie Van Halen fan, so no matter who's singing, I'm happy.
I'm happy.
Now, I don't think Kenton's fans were too happy
No.
with the record. Okay,
And I
I know
want to
we're
say
still on
this
some
though.
story.
It's not just about selling the album, and this is why when I introduced it, recorded December 5th, 1951, when you go back into the history of this, Kenton would have one song on an album. So he would do his, what they called at the time, Innovation Orchestra from that 47 to 51. And he did a presentation of progressive jazz, 48. Innovation in modern music, 1950. Stan Kenton Presents in 1950. And then 51, City of Glass. In 1953, I think it is, the Kenton era box set came out encompassing all of this. And then The Modern World in 1953. Every one of those albums that I just listed is that modern orchestra third stream. But City of Glass was not an original sold, period. He had to convince the record producers to put one song on all of those albums to have a compilation CD, which they called the City of Glass.
City of Glass.
Nobody in the recording industry wanted to touch Robert Gradinger's City of Glass. Stan Kenton did because he wanted to push the boundaries. And I had a trigger moment this morning listening to our radio channel. Kamasi was on. And I thought about it. He's pushing boundaries. He's pushing boundaries today. Miles Davis pushed the boundaries. Herbie Hancock with Rocket pushing the boundaries. Everybody's trying to push boundaries, and Kenton experimented with that. I ended up doing a timeline of Stan Kenton in my journal because I wanted to see what he was doing, what he was up to. And most of it, standard big band. In that middle, the innovative time period, he went back to the big band until 1961. And then he did a mellophone big band. I didn't listen to any of that. He did some special projects from 65 to 67. But Kenton from 1941 to 1979 was big band, with the exception of those few years. And it wasn't all Gradinger. There were some other compositions and arrangers.
That's true. It wasn't all Gradinger, but to me, Gradinger he's just above and beyond probably a lot of people's grasp and understanding. And I think it was even in the whether it was in the magazine. Yeah, Gradinger himself did not claim to fully understand the scope of his creation. All right, can you imagine Monet painting a painting? Oh, I don't know. I don't understand it. I just did it.
I just did it.
Yeah.
We put it out there. People somewhat bought it. But okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. It is what it is. The other thing that I really found funny was I was just kind of researching Gradinger himself, and the musicians didn't like him. They didn't like the way he looked.
I read that this morning and we're going to have the links to some of these pages below in the description. Matt's got 4 excellent links. On link number 1, and I didn't write it out, but they described him as a walking skeleton with deep set eyes, like flesh falling off the bone kind of thing. And he was isolated. He didn't want to talk to people. He didn't want you to look at him. And yet he has to be in a room with 28 musicians trying to get them to play his color palette, if you will.
That was the same article that said he survived on coffee, alcohol, cigarettes, and eggs, right?
Scrambled eggs.
Yeah. Scrambled eggs.
Yep. And this is, I read this earlier, I said this earlier, in an interview, the trumpeter Buddy Childers was explicit. You either have the intellect capacity to appreciate the music or it's bullshit. Later, Childers was asked his opinion, and he said, it's bullshit. Mm-hmm. That's the common theme among the musicians. And then Stan Kenton said it was either the greatest band ever that was presented, or the greatest album, or the biggest pile of crap ever. And in 1981, when he was asked later, he said, I think it was just a big pile of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have to ask this because we've always asked this on albums like this. How the heck does it make a top 100 list?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And the other thing is it made the list in 99 and it was number 80 or something? 82. No, I'm sorry. 80. It was 90. It was 90 on the 99 list. And then they took it off in 2006. They didn't even keep it on the list for the 2006 list. So yes, how does it make the list? Is it because it was so outside of the norm that I don't know? I don't know. As an unconnoisseur, as not an expert, I don't know how it made the list.
As an unconnoisseur, no idea whatsoever. I wonder if it's just because it was pushing boundaries and it has. I mean, obviously, our emotions on the album, the bull crap that it is. I can't say bullshit. Mom's gonna
No,
watch this.
I know, right?
Sorry, Mom. I'll bleep that out for you. But when I think about it, it does shake it. This is a long time before what we would call modern jazz. In the 70s, I think somebody labeled Brecker as that. Joe Cocker did.
Yeah.
Um, it's definitely not avant garde time. We haven't really made it to that stream of things. And and if you look at the discography for the man, Robert Gradinger, everything is piecemealed. It's one song at a
Mhm,
time. It's
mhm,
I've got a
mhm.
7 minute presentation that I want to give you. I've got a 5 minute. I've got a 10 minute. And putting them all together on an album. Now, I, I do have to say this. When we rate it, I will tell you that I will have changed a little bit in my opinion because I have listened to it with a fresh mind. I didn't have to come off a Winton week because we soaked on this for a whole year. But even then, we need to play an audio clip. I'm just going to start with Thermopylae,
Okay.
just right off at the very beginning.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Here we go. Three, two.
Well, and you know what? We just talked about it right before we recorded. So just do Everything Happens to Me. Just do,
Oh,
20 or 30
I'll
seconds
do
because
30
that's
seconds.
kind of the most.
It's
Do 30 seconds of
it's the
Everything Happens
it's
to
the
Me. That's the
most
most
musical
musical.
piece of this. All right, here we go. I'm gonna
Yeah.
hit it in three, two.
I make a date for golf, and you can bet your life it rains. I try to give a party, and the guy upstairs complains. Guess I'll go through life just catching calls and missing trains. Everything happens to me. I've never missed a thing. I've had the measles and the mumps. And every time I play an ace, my partner always trumps. Guess I'm just a gal who never looks before she jumps. Everything happens to me.
That
All right.
to that song to me, as much as it is musical, it's a sad song. It's a woe is me.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go outside and it's raining. I'm gonna have a party, and my upstairs neighbor complains. Everything happens to me.
I play my ace and my partner plays the trump.
Right.
That line sticks out into my
And
when she says that.
I hadn't even focused on that. You play you play cards though.
Play euchre, yeah, and that would just be like my partner just
Yeah.
to trump my ace. No, I mean, not my
It,
partner, not my wife. She
oh
would
no,
never
she
do
would
that
not.
to me. No.
Um, I will drop another song in as need be, but it helps us define and explain and express without y'all listening to the attitude some of the harshness that's created in this particular album. Gradinger, the article that I read this morning, it was really funny because I'm thinking through what does the music make me feel? and you don't find a place. It's a scary movie that never has a chance to breathe. It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you're running into the shed where all the knives are, and you're stuck there because you can't move. Your own fear has left you sitting in a chair, unable to move, and an intention, this fear factor, you want some release. You want the four chord to drop and just and he doesn't give it to you. I was having this epiphany of what it would look like, and I was thinking about Pablo Picasso's art. He's got some really sporadic and cool, and I was kind of thinking that that's Gradinger. But the article on the first link that we have here, he says it's a blend between Dolly and an Alfred Hitchcock movie. And I thought, man, that is so funny. And looking at Salvador Dali's paintings, some of these with the super long legs, these creatures moving through the desert, that's what this album is. Some nightmarish creature cruising through the city, about to attack the entire world, and there's nothing you can do. And you hope for the album to end. I had to say it that way.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. That is a good way to put it. Like you're holding your breath and you can't take let's say that you're underwater and you can't take a breath until you reach the top where you can push through the top of the water and finally take a breath. That's kind of what this album is like. I'm not saying it makes you hold your breath, but it kind of is like, am I at the top yet? Is there any relief?
Last time we were at home, I jumped in off the 20-foot at Pine Lake, and coming back up out of, no, it wasn't the 20, it was the diving board. I went into the water and my drawers came down to my knees. Well, I don't want to resurface because I know that if I do, I'm going to lose my shorts, and nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody. And so I'm struggling to get my pants back up. And that's what it is. You're trying to get to the surface, but you don't want to. You need to. And when you get there, you're thinking, should I breathe or check my shorts? What am I doing? And that's murky, dirty water, so you can't exactly see the top. That was how I pictured this.
Yeah. Yeah. Art Pepper, the saxophone player, he wrote it in his book, The Straight Life. I believe Gradinger was a genius and misunderstood. His compilation is truly a work to be admired, but is far above most listeners' heads. Now, okay, we're only on week 18. We've heard 18 weeks of some other very, very good music. Some of it we liked, some of it we didn't. Are you ready to rate this? You ready to give your score yet?
I am. I feel it'll be a fair score. I really do. It's interesting because it's the first real album that really makes you wonder what. I'm just going to end it with that. What is this? It was a great introduction to avant-garde. It was a great introduction to not Stan Kenton, because this is not what he's known for. But I do have to say the world would have been a little bit different without Robert Gradinger. And he passed early. He did not make it very long. And so I think it's a shame that we never got to see that full potential of what he could do. If this was all his works combined, and it really is, as you guys go out and look for yourself, this is a compilation of everything that he's ever done on one album. Doesn't move from beginning to end. And this morning, listening to the entire album beginning to end, it does have some congruity. It does move from beginning to end, and you can see it as a movie unfolding. The gentleman's name I was looking for earlier, I just found it. Robert Gradinger was tied in to a lot of composers of his time, doing movie sets, doing stage shows. So his idea was TV, movies, and stage productions. That's what he was known for writing for. Film musicals. Pete Rugolo and Joe Green. They were writers for Stan over the years. Pete, by the way, 6 Degrees, I'll talk about that later because it was Pete Rugolo I was trying to think about with Miles. Igor, and what the article says is serialism, just like Igor Stravinsky in neoclassical stuff. He was just following suit with what others were doing. The problem is that in film, they have a release. You can stop fearing for your life. And he just kept that tension going. Right or wrong, it kind of shook the world. Do you agree?
Well, all right. This is the first time in 18 weeks, not the first time that I want to change my score, but the first time if we were able to change scores that I would go down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What was your score? Are you ready?
Well, I'm ready.
I said I was ready, and then I went down another rabbit hole and told
Yeah,
you all about film.
Okay, let me tell you my score first. My score for this week for Stan Kenton City of Glass is 6.5. That's, again, for me, we're coming off a huge week. We both so much enjoyed Wynton Marsalis week, and then my expectations of what I was going to get and what I got and what I expected, it wasn't there for me as an unconnoisseur. So tell me your score, and then I'll expound on my score just a little bit.
I rated this at 6.5 out of 10. I just looked down at the notes again, and I realized that we rated somebody even lower than that just 2 weeks ago. How does that make you feel?
Well,
I had to ask it that way.
yeah, I get it. I would switch scores. If it was up to me, I would switch. I would switch the two scores around. The 2 weeks ago we talked about Bix Beiderbecke, and we kicked ourselves, and we still kick ourselves for the score that we gave Bix. Now, I would want to go up on Bix's week again, and we talked about it on the episode, but on Kenton's City of Glass,
You're going to go higher?
No. I'm going down. I'm going down. No way.
Would you have just switched them 5.5 on this and 6.5 or better on Bix? Yeah.
I think I would have.
I got no problems with that.
Yeah, just as an unconnoisseur, I'm thinking of recommending the album to Dad. What would he think? No. Don't even do it. Recommending it to Kendra, like she heard it yesterday, but she was, not interested. I'm thinking even Lily. What would Lily think about? Well, you've probably played it for Lily.
I've forced her to listen to a few of the songs.
Okay.
And her look is the same that I would give you. What are we doing?
What is this? Yeah, what is this?
So, yeah. First time listeners, don't dig into it. However, Matt, I have to be honest, it's part of the journey. Without the knowledge of this, and from here on out, episode 18, Mark the Point, chapter mark, click, we're going to talk about eating glass. And when we do, this is what we're talking about. I'd rather eat glass than have to deal with the art ensemble or Peter Brotzman. I'll take the glass. So it becomes, and it did last year, it become an ongoing phrase for us of standard of, it's just not, I don't have any other words.
Well, and here's the thing. I think a year ago when we originally did this, we did not want to give Stan Kenton a bad score.
Nope.
Maybe that's where the scores were coming from. And we were so excited about Kenton and all of the other music that we listened to that week of Kenton's, okay?
Because I didn't write all of his albums down. I printed the discography and highlighted all the albums from Kenton
that you did.
That I did listen to.
Well, they're still in my library.
So, okay, I'm gonna break that train of thought. Musically, were the people talented? Did they play their part on the album? Musically, it was a brilliant production.
One of the quotes that I read from a musician that played said, if you got lost, you forget it, because you could not find your way
No.
back in.
No.
So musically, yes, you had to concentrate the whole time that you were playing on your part. And again, the first trumpet player, the second trumpet player, they're not doing the same thing. He's not playing, high notes and you're playing low notes. It's your own thing. And if you got lost, forget about it. So yes, musically, this is not about the musicians. This is not about
Nope.
their,
This was about the
this is about
composition.
the arrangement. Yeah.
Yep. And so I think that's probably fair that I'd written that down from Stan Kenton's standpoint. It was a Kenton album, so it should be higher rated. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Because I don't want our listeners thinking that I don't like Stan Kenton, because I love me some Stan Kenton. It's just not this one.
So before we get to next week's album, which is going to be a great one, I do want to give this. Recently, we lost David Sanborn. And just a big shout out. Prayers and thoughts are with the family at this time. What a brilliant musician. I've heard the name over the last year. Never really sank into me who David Sanborn was, where he had been. And I looked it up early this morning. He was a session player. And I can't read the whole list because it's only like 1,000 names. But names like Stevie Wonder, Paul Simon, Jocko, Brecker Brothers, David Bowie, Springsteen, Elton John, Gil Evans, Carly Simon. And he worked in the 70s on SNL next to Marcus Miller, who they worked a lot together in the years. He's played with Who's Who, and he's crossed a lot of streams. And today I listened to a lot of the albums: R&B, pop, jazz, blues, fusion, rock. And so my thoughts are out to the family. Big loss, David Sanborn.
Yeah. Sanborn's got one of those tones, much like Brecker does. When Brecker comes on, it's Brecker.
Yep.
When Sanborn comes on, you know who it is.
Yep.
I mean, he's just got an unmistakable tone. I don't know. He was amazing.
Yeah, and the quality of his stuff. So I wanted to hijack that because I had it on my notes to say at the very beginning of the episode. It was really important to me to realize that another jazz great has just gone.
Yeah. And it is important to bring up. It's sad to talk about, but it's important to bring up.
It's all part of journey. Life is that journey. And for the musicians in that world that have played with him and traveled with him, he'll go down as with a fanfare. Hopefully in 50 years, he'll be remembered and still be celebrated, 80 years, so on and so forth. So it's kind of up to all of us
and
to
not
keep that candle lit.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to poke fun at anybody's loss, but when Robert Gradinger died, none of the musicians came to his funeral.
It was,
and that's a quote.
It was Stan Kenton and just one other.
One of the other arrangers came. Yes. It was none of the musicians.
And
I didn't mean to make you laugh and spit
no,
pop out of your nose.
But I remembered reading that. It was a quiet time, but he was an isolated individual. He really was. Which reminds me to say this. Find a person to journey with. Challenge them to listen to an album a week. And I will tell you this. Matt and I started with this. One time. Just listen to it one time. We'll talk about it on Tuesday. Go listen to Need to Breathe. Go listen to whatever other songs. But just pop it in your ear and see what you think. And this has turned into... Now we're recording episode 18. I mean, for crying out loud. A year-long journey, which started with one album a week. Immediately, it's going to extend 3 years. We've got 2 years to record, another year to finish talking. It is life-changing. And I appreciate the list that we're using from Jazzwise. There's no guessing. We don't have to talk about the next album coming up or try to do our homework. Who else should be there? We know because we have a list.
Yeah.
And that list tells me, go ahead.
No, and I was just going to say the other part of our journey is we told ourselves not to look ahead on to, just because it would kind of ruin a little bit. And we'd want to jump to number 50 instead of number 82 or number, 48 instead of 80. That's not how we're doing it. We're just going down our list. And so in my mind, there's music that you get to listen to. There's music that you have to listen to, and there's music that you want to listen to. And sometimes they all come together. I get to, I want to, and I have to. And then there's other times like City of Glass that's the I have to.
Do I have to? That's what
Do I
I'm
have
really thinking. Yeah,
All right, let's introduce next week's artist. You want to talk about him?
I do.
You do it.
Well, so next week we have coming up on number 81, which would be episode 19, Django Reinhardt. Django Reinhardt Volume 1 is the album, and it was on Nexus. It came out on a CD, recorded from 1934 to 1935. Django is a guitarist. He's got another guitar on here, violin, bass, and then it just says and others. So there will be some real treat. In the reading of Django, no, I'm not going to tell you anymore. You guys have to go listen to the album and do your own homework. But I will say this. The opening statement, Reinhardt was perhaps the most influential pre-electric guitarist, taking the inspiration of America's Eddie Lang and giving it a distinctively European twist. Django Reinhardt, and yes, the D is silent. I had to say it. So Matt, we finished. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I had never heard of Django before. I mean, I've not the name, the artist, Django Reinhardt. I had never heard of him before. So it's going to be an exciting week putting Django in our ears. I remember conversations from our journey about him, and it's going to be a good discussion next week. Be sure to tune in next week because Django.
Django.
And the D's silent.
As always, you guys can reach us on the web at theunconnoisseur.com. Shoot us emails at theunconnoisseur@gmail.com. Go check out Matt's TikTok, and he's been banging that stuff out, and I've enjoyed watching them. As well as here we are on YouTube. Check us out on the YouTube Shorts, which we'll be following as well.
I was going to say, we forgot to mention the 6 degrees. You want to go over it real quick?
Please do.
Okay, here's how I got to Miles Davis from Robert Gradinger. So Gradinger to Kenton to Jerry Mulligan to Miles Davis. That was 4 degrees from Gradinger to Miles Davis. Did you found another one?
I did, and I was trying not to talk about that. Pete Rugolo. He was a composer that had worked with Gradinger on this and Stan Kenton, and then he worked with Miles in the early non-ed, and it's listed as Miles Davis Orchestra because of the big band sound, which we know from Gil Evans' style on that. So he had written with and part of the crew that helped with some of that earlier writing. So
cool. Well, I just didn't want to forget that. Didn't want to forget the 6 degrees this week. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, well, I'm glad you found one. I'm glad I found a different one because sometimes we're on the same wavelength and we would have found the same one. But
going back to what we said pre-recording, with a list of 28 artists, there was bound to be somebody on there. Just enough digging.
Right.
All right.
Okay, guys, put Django in your ears this week. The album cover, you'll have the album cover up, Django Reinhardt Volume 1. So have a great week. I can't wait to see you all again next week.
Awesome. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.